I'm not sure it's possible for me to prepare you for what we're about to experience, but this is r/2sentence sadness. It's very similar to two-sentence horror stories, except you're supposed to convey like a heartbreaking, tear-jerking story within 2 sentences. Content warning. Any tragic/traumatic experience a human can have will be covered, so let's see what we got here.
I love you, my dear, forever and always,
my mother whispered to me. I pressed play on the voicemail again, having learned long ago that forever and always doesn't always matter if you come out of the closet. So, starting off with the top post of all time, it's a good one, you know, a person losing their relationship with their mother because she's homophobic. This theme is going to be beaten into the ground by the end of this video, but we're starting off with a good one. I immediately started apologizing and braced myself for the shouting after I accidentally spilled water on the floor. My partner hugged me and reminded me that I no longer lived with my parents. This is another one, this is the second top post of all time, where I'm like, this is a good story, but once again, themes we will see repeated over and over again. Just keep this in mind for later. 16 years ago, I was informed by my parents that the reason I never saw my best friend again was because he was beaten to death on accident by his parents for coming home late. Ever since that day, I regretted changing his watch an hour backwards for more playtime. This one, clearly a tragic and horrible thing, but it almost reads more like a 2-sentence horror story where it's just like, imagine the worst possible thing that could happen, and then throw in a twist. I catch my wife smiling gleefully in the mirror as she discovers her dress fits more loosely. Please, I beg her, please eat something. So are you starting to notice a pattern here? In the first 4 stories, we've got homophobic parents, abusive parents, child murder, and now eating disorders. These extremely sensitive topics are going to continue to be abused for karma farming as we go on. My 4-year-old son loves to jump out and scare me. Unfortunately, I was holding a kitchen knife the last time he did. This is just a 2-sentence horror story, except instead of everyone being a murderer, it's just, oh, it was an oopsie. Tails, huh? I sighed as I looked at the coin in my palm. I put the gun back in the drawer and got ready for work. This is another one that I think is really good, but as you just scroll more and more through the subreddit, the topic of self-murdering just becomes so trivialized by the sheer amount of stories using it as a plot point. Time of birth, 8:45, the doctor said as he handed me my son. Time of death, 8:47. He followed up with closing the eyes of my wife. Like, this is just, it's an obviously tragic thing. People die during childbirth all the time, and it's a horrible thing that happens. But for some reason, in this format, it is nothing but hilarious to me. Just the idea of them saying time of birth when the wife is like currently actively dying and will die in the next 2 minutes. It's just, I don't know, am I a fucking horrible person? It feels like these stories are like trivializing these serious issues, but am I also a piece of shit by calling them out for being funny in that regard? I sat reading the last note my wife left me before her car accident for the 100th time. You're going to be a daddy. So once again, very tragic topic, but it's got that classic 2-sentence horror story twist. Oh, you thought just your wife was dead, but it's your unborn baby too. I almost died today, but the paramedics brought me back to life. I guess what everybody says is true. I really can't do anything right. I feel like I've found the issue with these 2-sentence stories. As you read, especially the ones with a twist, the second sentence starts to feel like the punchline to a setup of the first sentence, like every time without fail. Like, I don't know if it's just because I have a dark sense of humor and I have unaliving thoughts sometimes, but just this second sentence, it starts to read in my head like, I guess what everybody says is true. I really can't do anything right. For the last time, son, you aren't depressed. Now quit calling. Huh, I never knew my dad worked at the suicide prevention hotline. Like, it's impossible for me to not read these as jokes now. Like, it just does not, it cannot work. She, a renowned artist and strict mother, often scolded her 6-year-old son for he could never draw a straight line. As he breathed slowly into the ventilator, she begged him to make one more crooked line on the ECG. This is, once again, it's a fucked up situation. This is super a child is dying. It's horrible. She's regretting scolding her kid. But the fact that you try and make, like, this clever setup to the situation just makes it so hard to take it seriously. Normally my parents pick me up from school, but today my uncle did. He looks like he's been crying. Now, I really need your guys' feedback on, like, my take on this subreddit and the things that I've said, because for some reason this story, like, affects me in a real way, even though it's, like, kind of using the same traumas from the other stories, but it's just better written, and it's an effective story, so it works for me as opposed to those. Let me know what you guys are feeling about this shit. Yesterday I signed up to be an organ donor if I die young. Today I'm ending my own life because there are people who deserve those organs more than I do. This, I don't even know how to describe this. This just feels like something I would have posted on Facebook at 14 years old and thought it was extremely deep. After coming home from the war, I was awarded a medal for having killed a man, but no one told me that I would get a discharge for loving one. This is not even a story. This is completely unoriginal. This is just a copy and pasted, extremely popular talking point that, like, yes, I agree with, but it doesn't need to be translated into a 2-sentence sad story. Like, it's just a thing that people have said for years. I've always had the supernatural ability to know where someone was by looking at a picture of them. So it pained me to tell the mother of a missing child that her daughter was in several different places. There are a lot of stories on this subreddit that just really show how strongly of an offshoot this is from 2-sentence horror stories. Like, it's like people from 2-sentence horror stories just found out this subreddit exists and just started writing shit and did not realize that maybe they should change their formula a little bit. I wondered why my mother kept smiling at me during the dinner. As my throat began to close up, I realized my mother had included seafood in my dinner to prove that I wasn't allergic to them. This is just a 2-sentence horror story. What is going on here? I just also want to reiterate, these are the top posts of all time. Every single thing that we have looked at in this video has been one of the top at like 50 posts on this subreddit to have ever existed. "I'm home," I heard my mother call from downstairs as the from door opened. I smiled slightly, satisfied that the last thing I heard was my mother's voice before I kicked the chair and let out my final breath. Like, this shit is just so disrespectful to all of these topics. Like, I'm grossed out, I feel weird, this plan is horrible too. You're like, oh yeah, I get to go out on a nice thought, but also ensure that my mother's going to find my body. Like, it's not the move, if you ask me. And oh god, this is just... Alright, there will be absolutely no jokes about this one. This one legitimately fucks me up, so brace yourself. I greet every new person I see with a smile, hoping that we can be friends. But nobody wants a dog who's already 12, no matter how friendly you are. Bro, we can't fucking do this right. I can't fucking do this right now. Every time my mom would tease and mock me, she would say, "That's just how I show love." I wonder if that's what she was thinking when she found my body hanging for the rafters. And I just wanted to use this story as sort of a jumping off point to another point, which is, I'm pretty sure, I just want to give this subreddit a slight benefit of the doubt. I'm pretty sure all of these stories are being written by children just trying to come up with the most horrible things possible. My least favorite example of this is the around 20 out of the 50 top stories that I skipped that involved some sort of SA or like the worst form of assault. I'm sure you can put that together, but the way that these stories were written were just like so I don't know. There was no content to the story other than this horrible thing happened, and it just felt like these topics were being used for upvotes, and I really fucking hated it. So I just wanted to let you guys know this. I felt like I could not leave this subreddit without at least addressing that. I stood in my family's backyard looking at the oak tree, remembering the swing that me and my brothers used to play on as children. I wonder what's gonna happen with this oak tree. I threw the rope over one of the branches as I prepared to swing from the tree one last time. Like, there's no originality at all. There's there are good ways to write two-sentence sad stories about these topics. They're just not being used whatsoever. I don't. This is Sugar Sode. We've seen one of their writings before. So this was just a little fun fact I wanted to throw in. There's a copyright notice on the sidebar of r/twosentencesadness, pretty much saying that if anybody narrates these stories, pretty much what I'm doing here, they are subject to being copyright stricken by the authors of the stories. Now, the reason I'm not worried about this is because I'm doing this for reasons of review, which is completely fair use and transformative under copyright law, and I can't imagine how I would review these stories without just reading them for you guys, because how am I gonna make like a plot synopsis and description of a two-sentence story? Like, I'm writing paragraphs just to describe 2 sentences for you guys. I just thought that was funny. You know that I appreciate honesty from you guys, so please let me know if you think I'm just completely off the mark with my analysis of this subreddit. I know it was kind of a strange experience. If you want some longer form content from me, top right of your screen, I just did a live stream on finding the scariest videos on YouTube. Again, it's like 4 hours and 50 minutes if you want something long to sink your teeth into. Anyway, I'd like to give a major shout out to Hannah, Matthew Kendall, Caitlin, Beth the Dork, Ashton Jacobson, June, Mega Mander, Alicia, Catco, Kennedy DeSilvis, Tapey, Hyper Ninja Child, Jared D, Regrettable Stitches, Allison B, Fiona Fox, Kaya Bay, and Brittany, as well as everyone else you see on your screen for being top tier channel members. I hope everybody's doing well out there, taking good care of yourselves, and skating on to the best of your abilities. This was a strange video. I don't know, I'm still like reeling from this whole experience, but I hope everybody's doing good, and I'll see you super soon. Peace out, Cub Scouts.